Hi everyone, welcome to John Live on YouTube. Today we are going to look at something that comes up quite often, and that is along the lines. So there's a few different ways that this comes about. First off, it will be what percentage Carnauba, what percentage T1 Carnauba is such and such wax. The other way it can be asked is currently use this wax, which is such and such T1. What would be the closest one for your wax? And then the final one that comes about is the percentage of T1, does that necessarily mean that that blend of wax will be a harder wax? So, as you can see, I've something I've drawn out a bit earlier. So basically we've got blend 1, which is 80%, that sounds fantastic, and 80% T1 Carnauba wax. Wow, you can sense the slight sarcasm in my tone there. Then look at this, a 60%. Now, these waxes essentially are, and this is a big thing when we talk about, speak to customers yourselves all the time, and we say, our waxes are different because of the way that we make them and because of the oils that we use. Now, what I'm going to show you later on is how big of a difference using natural products can actually make. So these are based on your stereotypical sort of petroleum-based waxes. Now, if you can imagine, what we are looking at here is just this section of the chart is the content of wax, so the volume of wax. It's, you can think of it as a relatively easy way to show you the percentage of the wax. It's relatively straightforward. It doesn't, take much time to split it up and see what your T1 content is. However, these two waxes, aside from the 20% difference, so let's get technical. Let's work this out whilst we're live. So if we base this on a 200 ml, so let's see these are 200 ml blends. 50% is wax, 50% is your carrier. Now, what we need to do first of all is look at the T1 content difference between them and the overall blend of the wax. Now, the area to be careful with is if we do it, maybe a more pragmatic way, if we do this as a 50-50 split and watch the Carnauba drop dramatically. So 50% carrier, 50% waxes. What is 80%? So basically we'll split this into, let's say, not really supposed to do this, but let's say 100 ml here, 100 ml there, 80%. So that's 80 milliliters and then 20 milliliters. Now, there's not a huge difference between 60 milliliters and 40. That 60 and 80 is tiny. For somebody like ourselves who we are making wax, we are a manufacturer, so we make our own waxes in-house. We make them every day. We could tell, even though there's a slight difference, we could tell because we know what to look for with T1. We've been doing this for 10 years now, so your eyes do become a bit more trained. It's just like one of my other big hobbies that I enjoy is fishing. And the more you fish, the more attuned your body becomes. So if you fish, if you fish every day, then you will just become better at it because the human body sees that as your priority, and it starts to change your ability because you're practicing. It's like everything though, practice makes perfect. And I do believe that from an early stage, and this is why I was so interested in the wax side of things, is that I was able to pick out details from vehicles that other friends, other enthusiasts you could see, but not as much. I think the turning point for me really was the, go off topic for a moment, but this does help, was the Golf R32 came with a slight, we used to call it purple, so it was a blue purple colour, and somebody had used a wax on it, and I could really see the flip effect. It had really emphasised that. And obviously years later, we revisited it, just because we had a customer at the time that had that type of paint, and I thought, I've been here before, I know that we can do something. So this, back to this, is a high T1, so you're talking 80% T1, 60% T1. You could go to 40% T1. Yes, to a certain extent, it does make the wax harder, but to really make a huge difference, you would need to decrease your carrier. That's what will make the wax much harder. Now, this isn't the how-to make waxes. This, any type of chemical processing is dangerous. So I would be the first to say, don't make a wax in your house, don't make it in the kitchen, don't melt the wax in the house, don't melt it in a microwave over an oven or anything like that. Leave it to the manufacturers that are geared up to do that. When we make a wax, even though it's with the natural products, or if we're making the petroleum-based waxes, we have all the PPE on, it's in the right environment. That's what I would state as the most important thing. You have to make this type of stuff in the right environment. You have to have a through draft, you have to have moving air, because this, a lot of these chemicals are highly flammable, so you need to be really careful. And so, if a wax is slightly misshaped in a jar, don't soften it, don't melt it, just leave it as is. That's the best thing to do, because it could combust. This is the thing, chemicals for the most part, okay, they're difficult to deal with, and they're not as cut and dry as they might appear. So just, probably I do try and go on the forums and help a bit if somebody said, I'm thinking of melting this wax that I bought on the radiator. Don't do it, because there's fumes that are coming off of that wax that will be in your house. And if you've got any young children, or even yourself, it doesn't take much to do damage. So I would urge you. So these are your typical petroleum style blends, and this is why I say, if you've got lots of petroleum waxes, they'll pretty much all be the same, because there isn't much you can do with a petroleum based wax. The solvent always has to sit about roughly the same level, and the waxes sit roughly about the same level. It looks a lot, 20% of a difference looks a lot, the way that this is produced, but it's just in a way to show you how low the T1 content is in the overall blend. So we could say that, that's 20% on half of the wax here. That's already quite small. If you take it as a whole, it reduces dramatically. So that's one of the key things. We have touched on it a few times, but just to review this, because what we'll sometimes do, if a customer asks, they are dealing with, say, a 60% T1 wax, it's kind of like judging a car's ability to go around a racetrack on the width of its tires. It's a small part of the ability of the car. If you've got really wide tires, but the car's only running a 1 litre engine, whereas if you've got wide tires and you've got a Porsche turbo, then you're going to go around that track much faster. It might cost a few pounds more, which goes back to the waxes. They might cost a bit more, but they are much better. So let's look at, say, a natural wax here. Again, the nice thing with the oils is the way that we use them. We can decrease the oils if you want to have a higher wax content. So a higher wax content would typically give you a harder wax, not just T1, but other waxes in there as well. Or you can increase the natural oils, and that can give you different looks. So this is why there's so much room to play with. Whereas with the petroleum waxes, there is only one type of petroleum solvent that's kind of used in the industry. So there isn't really much you can do with it. It does still produce a nice wax, but they are night and day. The natural oil waxes that we produce are night and day to the petroleum waxes such as RPM. RPM is a phenomenal wax. It's probably one of the best waxes at that price point and possibly slightly above. But it's still, a couple of leagues away from the likes of lavender, or even you're going right up to the Rorys, the lilies. Once you hit that level, you really see a dramatic, because that's the passionate, that's where you get to have free reign. But certainly with the lavenders and things like that, you do get with the core waxes, you're getting a significant increase in the quality of ingredients. And again, they are some of the best on the marketplace, certainly, because of the concentration, and we don't reduce the natural strength. Very similar again to, what I always liken it to is squash or diluting juice. There is a point at where that diluting juice, if you have it, or squash, whatever you like to call it, if you have it too strong a ratio, then it's not palatable. You don't, it's not enjoyable. And it's a similar story with the natural waxes. There is a sweet spot. But the nice thing, obviously, with Michelin King is that we use so many different oils and waxes and things you can tweak throughout the range. That's why we have so many waxes, and they are so different as well. Somebody will pick up Rory and they might have Lily as well, and they'll say, Rory looks fantastic on this paint and really does well, but Lily suits this paint a bit better. Excuse me. So that's, it's great to see and to hear the feedback. So certainly always bear that in mind when you're looking to purchase your new wax or add to your collection. The thing that we are more keen on is to sell the wax under the aesthetics. And I suppose there has to be a bit of trust, and I understand that from both sides. You need to put your trust in us. I don't mean it like you need to. I mean like you're allowing us. I'm not really sure how you word this, but I think you get the gist. You're trusting us to make something that isn't based on that sole percentage, because you can see how easily that percentage is to engineer. And that kind of comes full circle. That was what I studied at uni, and I quickly realised that a lot of products on the market, not just car wax and stuff, but we were taught quite early on, even in school, that products did have a lifespan, because if you built something that was so good that lasted, the company goes out of business. I kind of feel different on that side. I feel that if you are investing with us, we want to build something that is really, really good for you, because typically you will come back and buy more waxes. Thank you very much for that order. So yeah, we're just trying to be as sincere and straightforward as possible. I can tell you whatever percentage you want to know. Like if you want to know if you've got a 60 odd percent T1, we can say, look, this is your closest one. So, and obviously just now and it has been for the last few years, but we are trying to change that so that there's more understanding for you as a customer to make the right decision and the right choice, and hopefully get something better. That's what we are here for. We're here to give you better. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.